Hello, welcome to Todd Miller TV, joined here with Juana. We've addressed this similar subject earlier, but we're going to change it up a little bit. You're getting ready to list your house for sale. You've had a couple real estate agents come by and give you a CMA, comparative market analysis of what your house is worth. Should you go out there before you pick the agent and why not just go get an appraisal so that you have a stamped value, government stamped value of what that house is worth, and you have to worry about the agent's price. You don't have to worry about listing too low, too high. You just know exactly what the house is worth.
In that circumstance, an appraisal is merely another opinion of value.
Okay.
Okay. A couple different things. One, if you want to satisfy yourself about the value of the property, go for it. It's your money. Spend it any way you wish. However, the buyer will not be able to use that appraisal because the appraisal is ordered by the lender,
okay,
and the lender chooses the appraiser. So that appraisal is only for your use, and it will not be able to be used by the buyer. Number two, appraisals look back, not forward. So that opinion of value is looking at historical values, not the way the market is trending. And number three, if you get 5 appraisals, you will get 5 different values.
Okay.
So it's not a done deal as far as what the value of your property is. It is, again, just an opinion of value.
So what about the strategy some real estate agents use to, say that a house, all the comps say a house is worth $225. The solds are $225. It's just that's pretty much the kind of going rate. And then the agents come in with $200, $225, $250, $275. They come in with all these crazy different amounts. First of all, why do agents do that, and what maybe can an appraisal help you figure out in that case?
Okay, so agents will do that for several different reasons. One, they will price the property low to sell it quickly. They will price the property high, trying to buy the listing, meaning trying to impress the seller with the amount of money that they could get for the seller in order for the seller to choose them to list their house. And then the other reason why agents will do that is maybe they have actually visited the properties in question over a period of time, and maybe there is some sort of a difference. However, the difference would not be $50,000. Okay, it would be a few $1,000s, maybe 5, maybe 7, but it wouldn't be 50. So that would be one of the reasons. Another reason is it depends on the area that they're looking at. So some agents will look at just that neighborhood. Some agents will look at adjoining neighborhoods. Some agents will go out a mile away from the neighborhood to look at comparables. So it depends on what data that they're using.
Okay. If you want to try something fun, and if you're that kind of person that believes that because somebody has an appraisal license of some kind that they have like government granted knowledge of what something's worth, go take a piece of sort of expensive jewelry at your house and go around to a bunch of jewelry appraisers and ask to get their opinion, and you're going to get ridiculous differences in value on that. Here, true example, went to list a house and the people had already had an appraisal and they were stuck on the appraisal. The appraisal had been done a year before, and this was in 2000, beginning of 2006. So the market was already starting to fall off a little bit. And they were really stuck on the appraisal, but not only that, they artificially added money above that. And this is why. The house sat with a freeway behind, right behind the house was a freeway, and from the house you could actually see the freeway. However, because the house was elevated, and this is on the west side of town, the house had a complete unobstructed view of the entire city. When they bought that house, that had a lot premium of $30 grand. So they said this house is worth. That the appraiser forgot to put $30,000 plus. So they were adding their own $30,000 on top of the appraiser's value, saying, well, he forgot to add that. That's what it's worth because that's what we paid. Because the developer knows it's worth $30,000, right? Because that's what we pay them for that view. Instead, what the appraiser did is the only comment the appraiser put was minus $5,000. Noisy road behind house. And they're like, we don't care about the noisy road. All we care about is we have this incredible view. So, like you said, everything in there is subjective, right?
Absolutely, yes.
If your neighbor has a pool and you don't, you may not care about pools, but if the appraiser makes a $30,000 adjustment, you're going to say, oh, well, that's not realistic because no one really cares about pools because you don't care about a pool. If you have a pool and your neighbor doesn't, and you go, well, they only gave me $10,000 for the pool, but it cost me $50 to put it in, so I know it's worth. I mean, that's how people think, right? We do everything based on comparison, and that's all really an appraisal is it's someone's opinion, and we use it to compare.
Absolutely.
Have you ever had a seller want to do an appraisal before the whole listing process?
Yes, I have.
Did they do it?
Yes, they did.
How did the process go for them?
It made it, I think, more difficult because they had this expectation of getting that particular value, and so it made it harder for them to consider offers that were good offers. In the end, they ended up selling the property in a longer period of time than they should have sold it in, and they sold it for about the same that the original offers came in at. Because eventually they figured out that after 5 buyers, that's the value of the property.
So do you remember the numbers at all, like about where it was listed and what the appraisal was and what it sold for?
The appraisal was about $300, and we ended up selling about $280.
Okay, and what was when you went in there and did your comparative market analysis?
I was right at $280.
$280.
And
okay.
it has to do with knowing what a buyer is willing to pay, because ultimately that is the value. The value is based on what a buyer is willing to pay and what a seller is willing to take. It's not based on an appraisal. It's not based on a lender. It is based on a mutual agreement of value.
Do you think that an appraiser, because all appraisers do is BPOs basically, they do opinions of value. Right. It even says on the appraisal it's opinion of value. Do you think that they're at a slight disadvantage because they're not actually with a buyer in a house hearing them say, oh, I like that, oh, I don't like that, this is whatever, and that agents have a different perspective for what people are willing to pay than an appraiser who's trying to do it all statistically based on, well, granite countertops, I have a chart that says I add $1,500 to my trade-off comparable tails, when buyers maybe would pay $5,000 more because it looks really nice.
Exactly. So an appraisal is using purely statistical data, and they simply do not have access to the emotional data. And the emotional data really cannot be undervalued, because purchasing a home is an emotional decision. And there is a premium on emotion. There really is. So in a market that is perceived as having scarcity, a buyer is willing to pay more even though an appraiser statistically says the value is less. So
do you think, and I'll give you the perfect example because this is what all investors do when they go into a property. And if you're investing, you've got to do this with all the properties, okay? You'll go in 2 houses completely identical, lot size, square foot, bedrooms, floor plan, everything. One has brand new carpet and fresh paint. The other is, it's not bad. Like the carpet's okay, but it's a little worn, and the paint is like, it's not too bad. Now the appraisal, of course, the appraiser has never physically been in the other house. He's just looking at the MLS going, well, this is the house, it must be just like this. Do you think that that something like that is going to make, how can an appraiser adjust for that when a person walks in and smells, wow, this smells like new house, versus the other one?
Right. Again, an appraisal has to back it all up with statistical data, while a real estate agent's opinion of value tends to include some of those emotional things, such as that new house smell.
Right.
Okay. It's something that's very difficult to quantify.
Okay.
An experienced agent is pretty good at quantifying it because we're out with buyers all the time, and we see what their reaction is. We see what they're willing to do above and beyond for that new house smell, so to speak. And as a parenthesis to this, when an investor walks into a house and it smells good and has nice carpet, he's okay with that. When an investor walks into a house and maybe the carpet doesn't smell that great and the house needs paint, an investor gets a big smile on his face, because he thinks, okay, it's going to just cost a couple $1,000s, and I'm going to get a lot more in value because someone else can't see what I see in this house.
Good.